from October to November 1974, the city of Chicago was gripped by terror and confusion. Well, mostly confusion. All of a sudden, the Jefferson Park Police Department was becoming inundated with calls from locals claiming to have spotted a literal 6-foot-tall, 150-pound kangaroo hopping around the residential streets. No one knew where it came from, or if it was even real, because, unsurprisingly, the thing was never caught, and no more than 2 months later, it was never seen again. Was there really a kangaroo terrorizing the northwest side of Chicago? And is it perhaps still hopping among us today? Come learn with me. I figured we could take a quick reprieve from serious topics and instead touch on a silly short one while I recover a little bit more from my surgery. It's been a little rough. I initially read about this one in the fantastic book Mysterious Chicago by Adam Selzer, so to learn more about it and read some other wacky Chicago mysteries, of which there are many, go check out his book. It's fantastic. And speaking of books you should check out, let's hear a quick word from today's sponsor, Rowan Bennett's new book. I'm very excited to have this returning sponsor because I very much enjoyed Rowan's last book, and this new one is no different. However, it is very different both in genre and theme. The Kindest Embrace If Firm Enough Can Suffocate is a sci-fi tale following the journey of aspiring stellarnaut Wisteria Elkin as she navigates the complicated path to becoming an official stellarnaut under the Kell-Princeton Spacefaring Corporation. The problem is, Wist is a trans woman and the Kell-Princeton Company forbids any trans people on the Stellarnaut force. So Wist must face her trials and navigate budding relationships while hiding her identity and figuring out who is really an ally and who might be dangerous, as well as coming to terms with if her dreams are what she really and truly wants. I'm not much of a sci-fi reader, but I found the world in this book to be very easy to sink into, especially with it being a very clear parallel to the world that we actually do live in. Being that Rowan is trans herself, it's really nice to read an exploration of this sort of story, not only through the eyes of a trans author and character, but with transness at the forefront of the plot rather than a side factor as it often is, if it exists in the narrative at all. I really like that because as much as I do love those queerness is normalized takes on sci-fi and fantasy where as LGBTQ readers we can just enjoy a narrative without having to think about our real struggles, it's equally cool to have stories like this one where those struggles are not ignored but highlighted and dealt with. The Kindest Embrace If Firm Enough Can Suffocate is a love letter to the trans community and a love letter to poets too. You can grab a copy at the link in the description below or catch an audiobook version of it narrated by a trans voice actress. Thank you so much to Rowan Bennett for sponsoring this video, and now let's get back to learning about the phantom kangaroo of Chicago. Now, Chicago has had its fair share of strange and unusual animal or creature sightings. Just a few weeks ago, there was a random sheep running around Fulton Market, or that cow that was loose in Niles that one time. Back in the 50s, there was allegedly a shark attack in Lake Michigan that no one can prove actually happened. And then, of course, we have the Chicago Mothman. But none of these took the city quite by storm as much as the Phantom Kangaroo of 1974, which had the Windy City and the world in a grip for an entire month, and to this day is a mystery that has never been solved. Now, phantom kangaroos is apparently a recorded international phenomenon where people report spotting kangaroos in places that they definitely shouldn't be. In the 2000s, there was a number of kangaroo sightings in Osaki, Miyagi City in Japan, and going further back in the 1930s, it seemed to be a huge decade for phantom kangaroos because they were spotted in the UK and also Tennessee around that time. Although the ones in the UK turned out to be a loose population of red-necked wallabies that broke free from the zoo, much like a similar situation that happened in France. From the 70s onward, more phantom kangaroos appeared in places like Oklahoma and New York, and Wisconsin, which, put a pin in Wisconsin, we'll be getting back to her in a minute. But several of these cases also turned out to just be wallabies, but no case is as confusing or mysterious as the notorious Phantom Kangaroo of Chicago. It all began on October 18th, 1974. The air had that distinct Midwestern autumn crispiness to it, the leaves are orange and crunchy, people are preparing for Halloween, and everyone is still reeling from the Watergate scandal. The residents of Jefferson Park, a Chicago neighborhood on the northwest side, which Technically, the area that this is all taking place in is now considered Belmont Cragen. I tried finding out when the differentiation happened in the borders between neighborhoods, and I couldn't really find a definitive answer. I'll be referring to it as Jefferson Park because that's what it was reported as, but if you look on the map of these streets and where this is happening today, it's Belmont Cragen. The residents of Jefferson Park were taking out the trash late at night when all of a sudden they spotted a 4.5 to 6 foot tall, 100 to 150 pound marsupial, depending on what report you read, hopping through the neighborhood. They called the police and 2 cops were sent out to investigate around 4 a.m. Officers Michael Byrne and Leonard Siangi. These 2 guys, who were both 24 years old and only 2 years on the force at that point, did in fact find the kangaroo, despite having thought the locals were pranking them. They cornered the kangaroo on a gangway in between homes on Meade Avenue between Eddy Street and Cornelia Avenue, as reported by the Chicago Tribune. And almost instantly, the ACAB kangaroo beat the shit out of them, kicking the 2 admittedly large men in the knees and shins. Officer Byrne recalled in the Streeter Times, "We turned into Cornelia Street and there was the kangaroo in the alley. They watched her hop into a backyard and then radioed the other officers on patrol. You won't believe this, but we got the kangaroo cornered in a yard. Send us some assistance. It looks like we're gonna have a fight." Byrne continued to the Tribune, "We were trying to grab him and put handcuffs on him. He took off and we chased him for about 1.5 blocks before we lost him. He was making strange noises. He was growling at us. It scared the hell out of us seeing him in a gangway growling." The account in the Streeter Times goes on, "He ran on us, but he fought when we cornered him. Any animal will. Any man will. I almost had the cuffs on him, but I got scared and my partner got scared when he started to growl. Then he started to scream and get vicious. We were afraid he would bite us. We were afraid we would have to get rabies shots. Later we found out they don't bite. He smacks pretty good, but we got in a few punches to the head and he must have felt it. Too bad we didn't have our nightsticks there. Then we really could have hammered him." Note, I'm referring to the kangaroo as she because most of the accounts said that it had a pouch, so it was probably a female kangaroo. And so the kangaroo vanished into the Chicago night, going 20 miles an hour, allegedly, until she was once again spotted in this vague area between Belmont, Austin, Menard, and Addison. Suddenly, the city was in an uproar. Was there really a kangaroo on the loose? Where did she come from? Should we make her the next mayor? The next sighting came from none other than 13-year-old Tribune paperboy Kenneth Griesemer, who was out delivering papers at 7 a.m. when he heard, quote, "the screech of brakes," and turned to see the kangaroo herself only a few feet away. Kenneth told the Tribune, "He looked at me, I looked at him, and then away he hopped. I wondered if I should tell anybody about it, because they might think I was crazy or something, seeing a kangaroo on the corner of Sunnyside and Mulligan," which, fair. But luckily, Kenneth's sanity was not in question. Officer Byrne said in the same article, "Boy, was I glad to hear somebody else had seen it too. His punch was brutal. He was growling like mad the whole time. We got scared and backed off." Alright, do kangaroos even growl? What noise do kangaroos make? Okay, damn, I guess they do. Also, the idea of the CPD trying to handcuff a kangaroo. Yeah, okay. The Streeter Times interviewed Lincoln Park Zoo director Joel Kitchener, who said that in his opinion, the kangaroo was actually just a wallaby, like all those other sightings were, but that still didn't answer the question as to where the fuck this thing came from. There were no zoos or circuses near Jefferson Park, and no one had reported a missing kangaroo or wallaby. Well, except for one call that had allegedly come in before the kangaroo was first spotted from an Australian woman who claimed that her kangaroo was missing, and cops assumed that it was a prank call, so they didn't get her name and number, although some later reports state that this call was a fake report and never actually happened. In fact, Adam Selzer was of the opinion that the kangaroo story might have actually been a fabricated story by the Chicago Tribune entirely. Must have been a slow news week. I doubt it. It was Watergate season. Why would they be making this up? Now, if this was in the Victorian era, I would be like, oh yeah, they definitely made it up, but It's not. It's a little too late for that. Who knows? As calls continued to flood into the police station saying that they've spotted the kangaroo, officials began to believe that she might have been heading towards the forest preserves, which are, quote, just a hop, skip, and a jump away, specifically the Cheche-Pinqua Woods to the west, or the numerous very large cemeteries all around. Big cemetery city we have here. Although if she had ended up in a cemetery, we'd probably have gotten some reports from some very alarmed funeral goers thinking that Grandpa has been reincarnated as a marsupial. Of course, at a loss for what to do, the cops began doing their research. Local genius, patrolman Edward Brensberger, theorized that they could immobilize her by lifting her tail off the ground because, quote, his tail is a stabilizing rod and he can't hop forward without it. Chicago's finest. Even the UN Australian ambassador, Sir Lawrence McIntyre, had some advice for the CPD. I'm not an expert, but I do know that they can be bloody dangerous. I'm so sorry, Australians. Was that a microaggression? He said, I'm not an expert, but I do know that they can be bloody dangerous because they're big. I'd suggest using a big net. An Australian cowboy named Randy Rush suggested that somebody dress up like a lady kangaroo and approach the Chicago kangaroo with mating movements. Did it have to be a lesbian kangaroo then, I guess? Maybe it was. Be who you are for your pride. The kangaroo was even spotted in drastically different locales, as in early November, the kangaroo was spotted as far as Plano, Illinois, 50 miles southwest, where 3 teenagers saw it hopping down the highway before jumping a fence, and then later by Plano patrolman John Orr. Maybe it's a different fucking kangaroo. Adam Selzer continues in Mysterious Chicago. One woman called in to report that the kangaroo, or something she thought must be the kangaroo, was asleep on her porch in the middle of November. Police arrived, ready to grab it by the tail, though one praised they also had a female kangaroo suit in the car just in case, and chased the animal out of the doorway, observing that it walked on its hind legs as it scurried under the porch, where it went to sleep again. Tearing apart the porch, they successfully lassoed the intruder and found that it wasn't a kangaroo at all, but a squirrel monkey. Why there would have been a squirrel monkey on the northwest side was not explained. The squirrel monkey, which was referred to largely as the Thing in this Tribune article, was not taken in by the Anti-Cruelty Society because the Thing wasn't caged, which I figure, isn't that their job? So the police put the Thing in a police car, handcuffed maybe, and took it to an animal shelter until someone claimed it. It's unclear if anyone ever did or whatever happened to the Thing. People also began speculating what should be done with the kangaroo if she was ever caught. Tribune writer David Condon, while musing about who should be fighting Muhammad Ali, wrote, "Now, personally, I am not acquainted with any gorilla who is a heavyweight contender or even a welterweight," continued Supermotor Bentley. "And if there is a gorilla, and if he can get a night off from wrestling, he still ain't about to whip Muhammad Ali. So there's only one answer. I will match Ali with that kangaroo which runs around beating up policemen and frightening the kiddies. All I gotta do is find that kangaroo, which is easy, and talk him into fighting Ali, which is easier. For one thing, kangaroos are great boxers. For another, the kangaroo is Australian, and I speak Australian fluently." I said, "Although I have read a great deal about this kangaroo, I do not figure he is for real. I hear about Republican precinct captains too, but I have never seen one." "Well, I personally know there's a kangaroo loose in Chicago. Same one wins the Duke of those couple of cops," said Bentley. "And I'll tell you how that kangaroo got to Chicago. Would you believe it? Charles I. Finley?" Yes, and I will refresh your memory. A couple of years ago now, this Finley says he is outfitting the Athletics in shoes of white kangaroo leather. And we was with him when he telephones Australia personally and talks to this fella what owns a kangaroo factory. We hear Finley order a load of more kangaroos that Cook County is ever gonna need. What I figure is that this loose kangaroo escapes from the Finley shipment so he is alive and well instead of winding up as a pair of white shoes. I find that kangaroo, and I will make him an offer he can't refuse. We sign him to fight Muhammad Ali. We take the kangaroo to City Hall to get his picture took with Mayor Daley, although we must be careful no one tries to run the kangaroo for alderman. Now, how do we trap this kangaroo? Very simple. We think like kangaroos. Personally, I've never been a kangaroo, as I do not believe in reincarnation. But if I was one running loose in a town of 6 million idiots, I'd be damn lonesome for another kangaroo. Well, you and I know there isn't another kangaroo this side of Hammond, but does the loose kangaroo know that? So we get a big mirror. A big one like they used to have at the Everly sorority, and we put that mirror in the alley someplace. Along comes the kangaroo. He looks in the mirror and sees another kangaroo. When he pauses to exchange pleasantries with the kangaroo in the mirror, we nab him. And we got $1 billion fight. And me and Ali will make so much money we can buy Arabia and send that Shah of Aaron back to pumping gas. I don't know about you, but I would have killed for this guy to have his own podcast. Born too soon. Even the president got in on the chaos. At the United Republican Fund dinner, newly inaugurated President Ford cracked a joke that the cops wanted to put the kangaroo in the zoo, the Chicago Bears want the kangaroo in the backfield, and the Democrats want to register the kangaroo at least once. After the decidedly uncool new president got in on it, it became a lot less fun, and as the days drew on, calls of sightings became less and less. On November 24th, the Tribune referenced a story out of Australia where a fisherman spotted a swimming kangaroo and theorized that Chicago's own mystery marsupial was swimming home to Australia. Now, despite his previous reservations, Adam Selzer actually did manage to track down Officer Michael Byrne, the one that got his shit rocked by the kangaroo, and he swore that it all really did happen. Byrne told Selzer on Facebook, "It was legit, believe it or not. I got kicked all over the place. Officer Siongi's holding a gun, like a kangaroo's gonna say, 'Oh, he's got a gun, I better do what he says.' The captain was going crazy. A little guy from Channel 2 came out and asked me what I'd do if I saw it again, and I said, I'll box him into a corner and take him to kangaroo court." The cigar dropped out of the chief's mouth. At this, Byrne was taken to the chief's office to be berated for that dumb comment, to which he said defensively, "Well, gee, boss, you can't take a kangaroo to regular court." Now, Byrne has his own theory as to where the kangaroo actually came from. He told Selzer that he knew a cop in Jefferson Park who owned a farm up in Wisconsin where he owned some kangaroos. Because, you know, it's fucking Wisconsin, and weird shit happens up there all the time, including people owning kangaroos and trying to travel with them. So Byrne said that everyone at the station knew that it was one of this guy's kangaroos, but he never reported its escape, obviously. So was this really the answer? Who knows? But given my experiences with people in Wisconsin and the CPD, I'm inclined to believe it. But then again, maybe it's more fun if it's just a mystery. And maybe, just maybe, the Jefferson Park and Plano kangaroos met up and their descendants are somewhere out there waiting to terrorize Chicago cops once again. Thank you for learning with me about the phantom kangaroo of Chicago. I hope it gave you a laugh. It definitely gave me so many laughs that I desperately needed. Let me know in the comments if you have spotted the kangaroo or know someone who has. Don't forget to grab a copy of Rowan Bennett's new book and also my own graphic novel, Liberated, The Radical Art and Life of Claude Cahun, links below. And until next time, wash thy hands, wear thy mask, and don't try to box any kangaroos. You will lose.